Greetings and thank you for joining us here at Spending Our Kids' Inheritance. Today we're going to cover Berlin and we'll share with you some of our favorite locations as well as a disappointing one. Berlin is a city full of art, architecture, nature, and history. And I'm sure most of you, if you're visiting, won't have a hard time finding things to do. We sure kept busy and we were there for 4 weeks total. One of the nice things about spending 4 weeks in a location is that you can visit it in a relaxed manner. With short trips, there tends to be a rush, trying to get out and maximize your time, seeing as much as you can each and every day. What we like about spending 4 weeks in a location when we can is that we'll alternate. We'll spend a day out seeing sights and then spend a day back in the apartment, either relaxing or doing those things that you have to do when you travel for a majority of the year, like laundry and shopping. So after spending 4 weeks in Berlin, we managed to see the city fairly well. Saw several of the areas multiple times, as we tended to go through some of the areas frequently while traveling to other locations, as well as the public transportation tended to get you to the same place a lot. So let's get moving on here. We'll start with our first favorite location, that being the Berlin Wall. Now, I'm sure most everybody's familiar with the Berlin Wall and what it was, but just for those that aren't, after the end of World War II in 1945, Germany was divided up, or control of it was divided up between the Allies forces. And not just Germany, but the capital Berlin was also divided. On the east side, you had the Soviet Union controlling, and on the west side, you had the French, British, and American forces controlling. This wall encircled Berlin and was a little over 150 miles long. This wall stood from 1949 till the end of the Cold War in 1990. After 1990, when the Cold War ended, most of the wall started coming down. One of the, I'll say, interesting things, I won't say necessarily nice, but I do believe history should be preserved, be it good or bad. There are several places where you can still see the original wall where it stood. This particular piece is located at a place called the Topography of Terror, which is essentially a museum that sits on the site of an old Gestapo headquarters. Another nice location to see parts of the wall is the East Side Gallery. This section was interesting. It is I'll say, fairly well preserved. I don't know if they had to do some restoration, because I know when the initial wall came down, people were chipping at it in all kinds of places, as you saw in the previous. But this is a section of the wall that has been used for, it's listed as graffiti, but I would say street art. Covers it for it's a pretty long section, so you have a nice walk and you can see a lot of artwork. One of the more well-known pieces is this one. Commonly known as the Kiss, this mural depicts the Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev and East German leader Erich Honecker embraced in a passionate kiss. In our opinion, the East Side Gallery was certainly worth taking a walk down and enjoying all the artwork. Made for a good day. It's a flat walk, so not very strenuous. And some of the artwork was pretty nice. Some of it was a little bit out there, but it was a good day. While walking around Berlin, you're sure to see bits and pieces of the wall that have been relocated. One of the things that I did appreciate, though, was even in the sections where the wall had been removed, you could identify where it was. These red bricks you see here have been laid down in the route that the wall went through. That plaque shows the date, and even here you can see it kind of running out through the middle of this street. Of course, if you're going to go see the wall, you should also make a stop at Checkpoint Charlie. Checkpoint Charlie was the U.S. checkpoint between East and West Berlin. Was famous, I think, for at least one standoff between the Soviets and US with tanks on either side. They had a couple pictures of it up in the area. The next location on our list is the Memorial to the Murdered Jews of Europe. This site sits close to the Parliament building, just a bit south of the Brandenburg Gate. As you can see here, they've taken a bunch of their concrete blocks, and from what we read and heard, every one of these blocks is the same size. Some of them have been buried deep, so only a little bit show. Some have been buried shallow, so a lot shows. It wasn't meant to represent anything in particular from what we can tell, or what I can tell. Based on what I read and what our guide had said, the intention was kind of to allow the visitor to wander and think, just ponder the meaning, I guess. On the east side of the complex, there's an underground museum of sorts. It contains a lot of documentation, letters, things like that, and these are, I believe, all from families that were affected. Now, not really part of this site or a site in and of itself. It is kind of tied to this as far as topic. So I thought I'd mention one of the other things I really enjoyed when we were there, that I think helps keep the memory and the history alive, so that people don't forget, are what they call stumble stones. These brass plaques are affixed to a stone, an actual stone, and each plaque bears the name of somebody that was removed from a house or building that was at that location during the war. The stones also include a birth year as well as a date that they were removed and or died, depending on what information they had on that individual at the time. Now, if you're traveling around Europe, keep an eye out for them, because they are not just in Berlin or even just in Germany. We've seen these in Budapest, I believe Belgrade as well, several other countries. Basically, I think anywhere that the Germans occupied, you might see them. Based on information I could find, over 116,000 stones have been placed to date in over 31 countries. And as you can see here, 11,088 have been placed in Berlin. All right, well, time to lighten things up and move on to our next favorite location, which was Charlottenburg Castle. This Baroque-style castle is located to the west of Berlin city center, is easily accessible by public transportation, and they offer 2 tours of the interior, one called the New Castle and one is the Old Castle, or New Side and Old Side, I forget their exact terminology. For our tour, we chose to do the Old Wing or Old Side, and we really enjoyed it. We found the apartments, I guess you'd say, the rooms all to be beautifully decorated. They've got a really nice selection of artwork and china, and just a lot of very nice stuff to look at. One room in particular was completely dedicated to china. It was just packed full of vases and plates and tea sets, and one of those places you would not want to break anything. The proverbial bowl in a china shop. If something like a bowl got in there, it would do a lot of damage. But yeah, very, very beautiful place. And there are things that I notice that other people may not. Everybody tends to have things they look at and things they ignore. For me, one of the things that I noticed was that some of the artwork transitioned from 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional. In this picture here, you can see how the left cherub has got an actual leg sticking out of the painting. The tapestry to our left of the 2 cherubs also has a bit of 3-dimensional portion that comes off the wall and flows over the edge, as well as some of the fruit on the right is painted and is actual three-dimensional. Here's one more example where the bottom portion of the cherub is three-dimensional, as is the deer that's kind of leaning over the edge or lying over the edge. This room was also something I found interesting. You'll notice the very beautiful ornate bed in the center of this room. Based on the sign that was in the room, this bed was not, or this room was not an actual bedroom. It says the bed was used for ceremonial purposes, as well as, I guess, kind of a status symbol to impress guests. To the right of the bed was located, I'll say, a semi-hidden door, and this led to a fully functional bathroom with indoor plumbing. Another amazing space was the private chapel. As you can see, it was very ornately decorated, had a few little balcony seats. It had an organ. Opposite the little pulpit area, there was a very large crown with cherubs holding it up and I think it's an eagle over the top. In addition to the many rooms there is to explore, the palace has a variety of artifacts on display as well. Things like this set of crowns, and there's a scepter there. There's also some very ornate, I believe this was some kind of jar or container. And there is also a silver table setting, which is very beautiful. Couldn't imagine going to, being invited to dinner somewhere and sitting down to see all of this. One final thing I wanted to mention about the Charlottenburg Palace is that the gardens out back are free to explore. So you can go and wander around and have enjoy it kind of like a park. One of the more popular locations to visit is the Parliament. Now that's not to say you're going in and checking out the Parliament chambers or even touring the building and seeing what happens. The goal of the visit for most people is to go up inside the dome on the roof. The dome itself is an interesting architectural feature, being pretty much all glass, steel structure with a spiraling ramp that goes up inside as well as down. So there's two ramps, one on either side. One they direct people for going up, one is directed for going down. And there's also an inverted mirrored cone, I guess you'd say, to help direct light down inside the Parliament building. The view from inside the dome out over the city is pretty good. You do have a 360-degree view, especially once you get up to the top. Not advisable probably for anybody with a fear of heights. As you can see, the little pathway or ramp is actually fairly wide. But you are pretty exposed to the height. So anybody that has a problem with heights, you may not want to do this. Now, for those interested in visiting the Parliament, entrance is free. It is a government building, so you'll have to have an ID, most likely passport for most of us. And across the street from the Parliament, there's a small shack where you actually get your tickets. You do need a ticket. They give out tickets 2 days at a time. So for us, we went by like in the afternoon and got our ticket for the next day. But I think if you get there early enough, you can get your ticket for the same day, but you're going to have to be early. While visiting the dome, you can also enjoy the rooftop for a little bit, and there is a cafe up there. We did not go to the cafe, so I can't tell you what they have on offer. I'm sure, some drinks and maybe some small snacks. I don't know that it was a anything like a restaurant, but I did see some people enjoying it. The views from the roof are a little nicer, a little less obstructed than inside the dome. And while on the roof, you can get a close-up view of some of the architectural details. Moving on to the last of our favorites, we have Triptower Park. Now, when we travel, one of the things that we like to do, especially when we're in a city for 4 weeks, is find a nice park or two that we can wander around. Triptower Park was a very large park, had a lot of green spaces, a lot of trees. They also had at least one or two, I think, beer gardens, so you can sit and relax and grab a beer or coffee or soda, whatever you might want. They also had some areas where you could rent little pedal boats, variety of those pedal boats. The wasn't something we did, but I could see on a hot day that being something that you might enjoy doing. One of the places that was interesting to visit while in Triptower Park was the Soviet War Memorial. This is not just a memorial to the Soviet soldiers that died during World War II, but it is also the resting place for, I believe, some 5,000 soldiers, Soviet soldiers. The site contains a variety of sculptures, statues, and a row of, I'll say mock, because I don't believe I read anything about anybody being in them, but like mock sarcophagi down each side. These have depictions of war, the battles, as well as descriptions or quotes in both Russian and German. Down at the far end of the garden area, there's a large statue. This statue is of a Russian soldier holding a German child standing on top of a swastika that he's broken with his sword. This is supposed to have represented one of the Soviet sergeants, I think it was. There was a story or report that he risked his life to save a German child. Well, I think that'll wrap up our list of favorite locations, kind of must-sees. I did also promise a disappointment. During our stay, there was a lot to see in Berlin, and we did get around and see a lot of sites. One of the ones that I went to on my own, really not interested, but I went to their Natural History Museum. Before going, I did read the reviews online, which were pretty much mostly popular or positive. And one of the things that I found interesting and kind of the reason I wanted to go, other than I like natural history museums, is that the Berlin Natural History Museum has the tallest mounted dinosaur skeleton. It's the skeleton of a brachiosaur, and it's a little over 43 feet high. Now, the museum did have some nice displays. They had several mounted dinosaur skeletons, which were cool. They also had a large room with a lot of preserved aquatic specimens, I'll say fish, rays, small sharks, things like that. But I think the biggest thing for me was it wasn't as big as I guess I was expecting. Now, it's entirely possible that they are working on expanding. The first couple rooms were very nice, had some good displays, well decorated. But as you move through and get back to like where the birds were all at, you had some in nice display cases, but there was a whole room with just illuminated and glass fronted, I guess, crates. Almost looked like they were more for storage than for a display. So, maybe they're working on expanding the museum. I'm not sure. But it was just, it didn't take me long to get through it. I kind of wished it was bigger. That was my only negative there. So in a way, a little disappointing. Part of it, I guess, has to do with, I've been to the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles, which is just huge. You can spend all day there. This did not take me very long to go through. Well, I think that'll wrap up Berlin. I do want to take a moment and apologize for the bit of an echo I seem to have picked up here at the end. I do tend to do these videos over the course of several stops sometimes, and I think the room that I had available to do my dubbing had a bit of an echo, so my apologies. Aside from that, if you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up and like. If you want to be notified when I post additional videos, follow my page with the notification bell on. Thanks again, and as always, happy and safe travels to everybody.